Okay, so I'm doing another Shadow Talk, and this one is going to be very different from the last one, where I was just rambling about things I was doing at the time or the things I was interested in. This is a little bit different. This time we're going to talk about how I started making webcomics. Now, I know I've talked about in the past how I've been inspired by like Naruto and Dragon Ball and video games like Tekken and Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, and the list goes on and on. I've talked about my inspirations for making my webcomics, but I've never actually talked about what made me start to even do it. Like what made me decide that I was going to be a webcomic creator in the first place. So we're going to have to take a trip back to 2011. Now, I had just graduated from college. This is about September of 2011. I got my degree in animation, and I was struggling to find work in my field after graduating. So fast forward to 2012, I had gotten a regular job, and in my spare time, I had been working on my demo reel to find a job in animation, which a demo reel that I've since lost all the files to. That's a whole nother story for another day. Anyways, I still continued to draw throughout all of this time, and I was still, of course, watching anime and old cartoons and stuff. I've done that all my life. Anyways, my drawings were getting better and better as time was going on, because I was drawing more often than I had in a while. While working, like getting my degree in animation, I was doing a lot of, and this is 3D animation by the way, so I wasn't drawing after a while as much as I needed to, or at least that I had at any other point in my life. Like I was doing so much on a computer, I didn't even have really that much time to draw in my spare time. So anyways, as I was continuing to draw, I began at some point in 2012, for whatever reason, I don't even know what made me do this, I started drawing a lot of the characters that I came up with, oh my god, back when I was in like high school, maybe even middle school. I might have been like 13 years old when I started coming up with my original characters for Shadow Assassin. And quick sidebar, what I'm about to say, I'm warning you right now, is gonna sound extremely arrogant, very cocky, and very stupid. The things that we tell ourselves sometimes in life. But so me and my brother used to always watch, or not watch, but read the Naruto manga on our own, and then we would talk about it at some point during the week. And at the time of the big Ninja War arc in Naruto, we were both getting pretty disinterested in what was going on, but we had been reading so many hundreds and hundreds of chapters of Naruto, it would have been crazy to just give up reading the manga so close to the end. It's like we at least have to know how this ends after all this time. At least we was getting disinterested right up until Madara arrived. Madara's the man. But in any event, that's neither here nor there. After reading one chapter of Naruto, at least Shippuden, I remember I would talk to my brother, and I would always joke that I could write a better manga than Kishimoto. How dumb was I, right? But I would always like just joke around and say I could write a better manga than this, especially with the amount that he was forgetting to cover in the Ninja War arc, and just the amount of plot holes that were starting to build in Naruto after a while. After years of doing my own webcomic, I now see how easy that is to fall into, and I'm not doing anything nowhere near as the scope of Naruto. So yeah, that was pretty presumptuous of me to think that I could do better than somebody who was a pro doing this for like a decade plus. So my ego aside, I continued for the most of 2012 to just point out how I could write a better story than Kishimoto had. But at the same time, I was still drawing those old characters that I came up with like since I was a teenager. And one day I decided I drew a picture of them, which I may or may not show on the screen right now, but if I can find it. I drew a picture of the main characters of Shadow Assassins, or who would eventually become the main characters, and I actually painted it, and my brother saw the picture, and I'll never forget it. He saw the picture and he looked at me and said, "You always talk about like you could do a better manga, and you always talked about how you want to do one yourself. You should probably do that." And that statement just kept playing in my mind for quite a while after that, because eventually I just started asking myself, why haven't you made your own comic? I mean, I always wanted to make a comic in the first place. That was how I even came up with those ideas when I was in school. Like my biggest passions and dreams was to work on a video game, work on a cartoon, or create my own comic book. Or I shouldn't say or. I want to do all three still to this day. So making a comic was still a passion of mine. Why have I told myself after all this time that I couldn't do it? Like, I've never really actually tried. I just convinced myself there was no way that it could happen. So then I just started telling myself that I didn't have the time for whatever reason to make my own comic. And then the more that I thought about that, it's like, that's BS. I have more than enough time. If I just took the time away from my day job not took the time away from my day job because I had to work to make money. But it's like, if I, outside of my day job, the time that I spent sitting around watching TV or playing video games or working on my demo reel for this imaginary animation job that I had yet to get, it's like I could probably easily get a comic done. And then from school alone, I had gotten Photoshop. I had quite a few tools at my disposal that I learned how to use and even had access to. And I had a drawing tablet. I had already proven to myself that I could draw these characters because that's how my brother saw the picture to tell me that I need to be working on a manga of my own in the first place. So it's like I could seriously do this. So then the question became, okay, if I even made a comic, what would I do with it? Like, where would I sell it? Like Marvel and DC, the last time I checked, even to this day, they don't really do a lot of original works at all. I can't remember the last time I saw an original character in a Marvel or DC comic. Not sure really how Dark Horse handles things like that. Tokyo Pop stopped doing the Rising Stars challenge a long time ago. And I don't live in Japan, so I don't know how in the world anything would get to Shonen Jump. And this is already presumptuous of me to think that my artwork would even get selected to be chosen to be in these places anyway. So it's like I don't know what to do or how I would get my stuff out there exposed. And then it hit me. It's like the internet. Webcomics exists. It's like I didn't really need to go through a middleman to get my stuff out there anymore. And this was back in like 2012. It's even easier to do in 2019. There's so many different ways that you could put your comic out there in today's day and age. It's like you don't need to go through a middleman or some type of company to get your stuff exposed. You can just do it yourself. So I was thinking, okay, I'll build a website. I started doing research on it, and the stuff I was finding was like how people were uploading webcomics in like the late 90s and early 2000s, which is a lot of work. Like, I have much respect to the people that were putting out webcomics back then, even in like 1996. Like, that was insane. You were literally in HTML completely typing out and building websites from scratch and uploading comics on and updating every week. And this was before like pre-made websites and Wix.com and stuff like that existed. So yeah, much respect to them. But I was thinking, okay, I'll just build a website and put my updates on it. And then as luck would have it, I found a website to actually house webcomics, and they paid you ad revenue for it. Albeit, of course, if you got a certain amount of views and had a bit of a following, but still, like, there's a potential chance that I could make money off of this. So it's like fantastic. And that was Manga Magazine. And it became my main goal and like the destination for my webcomic. So I gave myself a deadline. Hindsight being 2020, it was a downright stupid deadline, but it was a deadline nonetheless for the foreseeable future. I was gonna spend a full year, and in that year, I was gonna work on the script of my comic, probably spend about maybe 6 months working on the script, and then I'll spend the rest of the months of the year, at least 4 to 5, actually drawing the pages of the comic, and then before 2014, I would be ready to upload. So I pretty much gave myself 1 year to work out the script, start drawing pages, and get my comic out there on Manga Magazine. Well, that didn't happen. I created numerous story ideas in my mind. I tried writing scripts. I also realized in the process I had no idea how to really write a script. I still kind of don't. I just know how to do it in at least a way that my brain can understand what's going on. But the scripts, like the stories were just terrible. Or maybe not even terrible. They just not good. Like, they weren't cohesive. They had parts of the story that were really interesting and then outrageously boring, like where nothing is happening. That was a big problem that I kept running into. And then I just spent like 6 months trying to flesh out the backstories for the characters that I drew in high school, because eventually I just gave up and was like, okay, if I just start drawing some of the characters out and just try to come up with the backstory for the character I've drawn, maybe I could piece something together that way. That kind of sort of worked. Note, these are the same characters that, as I said earlier, I had been drawing since I was like 13 years old. Note, I'm closer to 33 at this point than I am to 13. But anyways, since I've gotten this far, I feel compelled to mention that at this point in my life, I guess I need to mention that since about age 16, I'd been helping to take care of my granddad, who was a double amputee. He was living with my family and me, or me and my family. My grandma's ridiculous. But in any event, around 2011, his health had gotten pretty bad. He ended up having to go on dialysis. And from there, it actually didn't really get better. His health actually started getting worse from there, and it was slowly getting worse. It wasn't cool to watch. And me and my brother was helping my mom to take care of him, because we didn't want my mom like struggling to have to worry about him all by herself. So we were like, it was getting pretty bad, and it was taking a toll on all of us by the time like 2013 was coming to a close. And it was taking a toll on us just having to help to take care of him. I couldn't imagine what he was going through at the time, to be quite honest. And he wasn't even like, he was alive, but he wasn't alive, if that makes any sense. He wasn't really like, he didn't want to really talk as much as he used to. He loved food for the majority of his life. He didn't really like eating, like talking about it. He didn't want to listen to the radio like he used to or watch TV. He didn't really want to do anything. He just wanted people to pretty much leave him alone at that point. So it was just getting pretty bad. Then on top of that, by the time January of 2014 had came around, my mom had got a really bad case of a bad case of pneumonia, and it was to the point that her actual, it almost took her out of here, to be quite honest. Her lungs had completely collapsed, and they had to do surgery to get the majority of the mucus and stuff out of her lungs, because they couldn't even pump it out her system like they do with normal cases of pneumonia. So she was pretty much out of it for the first quarter of 2014. So me and my brother was pretty much taking care of my mom and my granddad in the house. And no, neither one of us are medical professionals, by the way. I draw and have just a little rinky-dink job from time to my day job. I don't know the first thing about taking care of another human being. In any event, by the time June had hit of 2014, my mom was pretty much back on her feet and doing well. She was back at work. Her lungs and everything had been healing up nicely. She was doing better. But my granddad had actually passed away in June. Actually, he passed away just 2 days after his birthday. And so with all of that going on in the first half of 2014, it was difficult, going through all of that, working at my job, and then when I come home, I'm still trying to work on this rinky-dink script that I keep screwing up in my own mind. So there was a lot of stuff going on, and it postponed my ability to get that script finished even further, because I wasn't as focused on it as I had been, and I'm not gonna lie, things took much higher priority over my webcomic at that point. But fast forward to around August of 2014, I realized that I had a tangible script to work on. I had finished my script, I believe it was about August of 2014. I had finished my script and was pretty proud of myself. I was about a year off of my deadline, but I had made it nonetheless. I had a script that I could work with, and then my newest problem arrived. I spent so much time, we're talking late 2012 was when I initially came up with my little brainchild of a deadline that I gave myself, which I failed miserably on. And I spent almost the next 2 years working on this script. I wasn't drawing in my spare time, talking about it. I would draw sparingly here and there, but the thing was, I was looking at, I would draw Vegeta in my spare time, or of course I'm a big wrestling fan if you've been following my channel for any period of time. I would draw my favorite pro wrestlers, or I would draw I know there was a picture of Kobe Bryant I drew. I would draw just random pictures that I would see every blue moon, but for the most part, I wasn't really drawing. Like, I wasn't focused on drawing pictures and stuff like that, which, by the way, is a big component of making a comic in the first place. It is a visual form of art. And I just took it for granted that once my script was finished, I'd be able to easily just, start drawing pages. Boy, was I wrong. Those initial pages that I drew were some crap. And I don't even think I have the files to even be able to show what those initial pages look like, but they weren't good at all. And considering the shape that my actual comic was when I officially got it done, that's saying something. So what I ended up doing was, instead of going right into making pages and getting them out there, I spent September and October drawing like a madman just to try to get myself to a point where I was comfortable drawing pages of my comic again, or at least where I could remotely draw the things that I saw in my head, because I almost lost my ability to do that. If I envisioned something, I had no idea how to get that down on paper. My drawing ability, long story short, it completely deteriorated. So I spent the latter part of 2014 just focusing on getting my drawing skills back. And by November, I think I was ready to upload again. I had started officially working on pages, which I was immensely proud of myself just for getting to that point. And I was hammering out pages, and I wanted to create what I now know as webcomic lingo of getting a buffer created, which is simply the act of like getting enough pages done ahead of schedule so you don't have to be worrying about getting stuff done week to week. That's a whole nother story as well. But in any event, I was working on getting pages pretty much in the can, and then, you guessed it, my next problem arrived. And this one was, I didn't even think about anything like this taking place. So one random day, I went on DeviantArt. It's sometime in like early December. Matter of fact, it's not early December. It was pretty close to Christmas, probably like a week before. And I randomly went on DeviantArt one day to just go up there and see what was going on. I think there might have even been like a painting or something that I did that I was planning on uploading onto my DeviantArt page. I noticed like this weird trend was taking place on DeviantArt. For whatever reason, the majority of the people that I followed on the site kept posting RIPinkblazers.com. Now, I hadn't explained this earlier, but for those who don't know, Ink Blazers is the site that used to be called mangamagazine.com. You know, the same manga magazine that I was planning on putting my comic on in the first place. It was shutting down. I'm not going to get into all the details as to why that happened. You could probably look that up and go into the specifics yourself. I know money and finances was a big issue, and it was going away. And it was going away rather soon too. People on this that I was seeing on the internet were sad about it. Quite a few people were angry. I mean, yeah, look at it. Some people were actually like making a living, and their livelihood was depending upon the money that they got from their comics and ad revenue. And that was just in the blink of an eye being taken away from them. So, I mean, word to the wise for anybody, always try to have more than one sources of income just in case one of those fall. But I was completely lost at that point. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I wasn't prepared at this point after all these years of work and all that other stuff. I was like, I wasn't mentally ready to have to deal with relearning and refiguring out HTML and having to build like a website from scratch and uploading my comic onto that. Nor was I ready to start having to pay money for like web hosting and all that other stuff. Like, my brain hadn't even been in that wavelength. Like, I was nowhere near thinking in that direction. But it's like, this is what I might have to do, and it was kind of depressing to me. Like, this wasn't what I was, like, Manga Magazine had been in my mind so much. I had ideas of what I was expecting to be doing with my comic and what I wanted to do, and like all of that was just gone in the blink of an eye. Before I even got started, like, I didn't even get a chance to upload my comic to the daggone website, and it's already gone. So I was like, I've wasted pretty much 2 years of my life almost working on this comic that I have no idea what to do with at this point, other than make a website that I don't even know how I'm gonna get people to go to. So before I just kept allowing myself to fall deeper and deeper into this pit of depression that I was starting to create for myself, I randomly just jumped up And note, this all happened in the space of like 24 hours. All these events right here happened in the space of a day. I just randomly jumped up that evening and decided I'm just gonna Google search similar sites to mangamagazine.com, and I was gonna see what came up. I mean, anything at this point to find somewhere to put my comic and to see what was out there and what could work. And to my surprise, I actually found 2 sites that were extremely similar to Manga Magazine. Actually, I found 3 places to put my webcomic out there because I came across Comic Jeeves, but I don't know, uploading on there and the way that their site was laid out when I first read it seemed a bit daunting to me at the time. So I was just with like, there's got to be something easier than this. And there was 2 sites that were extremely similar to Manga Magazine, which were Tapastic, which is now known as Tapas, and Line Webtoon. And they both allowed for comic creators to upload for free, and as a bonus, they also had some type of system in place or were in the works of having a system in place that allowed the creators to make some type of ad revenue or money or like have donations or something. Basically like a support system or some crowdfunding system on the site, along with getting ad revenue for your comic being up there, which of course you do need a following and you need some type of like, you need people viewing the ads in order for that to work. So you still need to do some legwork and build a following on your manga or webcomic, whatever you're doing. You need to like build a fan base is what I'm trying to say. So I was like, okay, no problem. So I got in a much better mood, thank God. And then the only thing I had to do at this point was just make a decision. And so I started looking up the ins and outs of both websites, and there were some questionable things that I was finding about both of them, but it's like the basically disgruntled people that I was seeing posting about the 2 sites. Both sites, and having dealt with both of them at this point, they're not bad at all. It just depends on your particular taste or what you want out of a site that you're going to put your comic on, which is why it did not take very long for me to make my choice. And that choice was Tapastic, and there was one feature and one feature alone that made me join that site. After all this nonsense that I've been through trying to work on this freaking comic, get the pages done, the amount of time that I spent working on the script, all the stuff that I had going on in my personal life with my family and whatnot in the meantime, and then at the end of the tunnel, at almost the finish line, having Manga Magazine just shut down on me, the feature that sold me on Tapas was the feature that allows you to upload your pages of your comic ahead of time on their site. You can pretty much just go ahead, and if, let's say I was going to upload a webcomic today, I can put it up there today and schedule it to be released on like New Year's of 2020. Like, you can just go ahead and upload your comic far into the future, and I went sold. So I immediately got onto the site and I started uploading the first 25 pages of Shadow Assassins. For the first, I think about 4 weeks, I uploaded 5 pages over 4 weeks for 2015. And there you have it. By January 1st, 2015, Shadow Assassins was officially on the internet. It was actually a thing. It took about 2 years worth of work, but I finally got it done and I finally got it out there. After all that time, and then these ideas and these crazy characters and stuff that I drew when I was a teenager had somehow manifested itself into an actual tangible comic. So over the next like 4 years, or the 4 years since 2015, I should say, I've made over 300 pages of Shadow Assassin, almost 400 to be quite honest. And I've also worked on 2 other webcomics. I'm currently working on another one as we speak. That's Infinite Uppercut. And while I did take a hiatus on Shadow Assassins in the summer of 2018, because I got completely fried with Shadow Assassins, I've actually already begun working on new pages and getting ready to start uploading those at least sometime later on this year, and get the ball rolling on getting Shadow Assassins back out there again. Which also blows my mind that comic is still growing subscribers, even though I haven't uploaded anything for it in about a year. That sort of blows my mind. I actually one day checked to see my numbers to see how many I had lost, just figuring like I haven't updated the comic in a year. People have had to have gotten frustrated with me. I actually felt quite bad about it, and to my surprise, I look at my subscriber count and it's increased in a year. Like, I don't even know how that happened, but it did nonetheless. So somebody likes it. Anyways, though, as far as Shadow Assassins is concerned, I still have some other ideas up my sleeve as well. Thinking about ways to start putting that animation degree of mine into use. And I'm just getting an animation bug in general right now, so I have a lot of different things I'm about to start working on in the future. But anyways, that's my story. That is the complete story of how I ended up working on my webcomic, or at least my first webcomic, Shadow Assassins. This is the story of how I started this crazy journey in the first place. So if you're a webcomic creator, let me know in the comments below, what was your journey like when you started trying to get your first pages uploaded and running. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and I'm out.